Let's get ready to rumble.
Yes, we're back. It is episode 96 of the Hibs Ramble. I'm Liam, this week joined by Craig and also Mark. How the hell are we, guys?
All good, mate.
All good, mate. All good.
What have we been up to?
I had the wee man up last week, so that was good. Horror show getting him home yesterday, but that's another story for another day.
You were saying.
And what I will say is that Stansted Airport is A, the hottest place in the world, and B, the shittest place in the world. There's not enough seats for too many people, and there's fuck all to do.
Well, if you're listening, Stansted Airport, sort it out.
And if it and
That's
it's
respect
fucking-
from a Luton Airport fan.
Honestly, I was just for about 6 solid hours. I was constantly sweating.
That's minging. Mark, any travel horror stories from you over the weekend?
Nope, I wasn't travelling. I did have Ladies' Day on Friday, which was actually surprisingly pretty good.
Oh,
It was actually,
did you end up in profit or
Did I end up in what?
in profit?
Oh, in profit. I thought you meant a nightclub or something. It was profit. I didn't. I won the last race, but I lost every race leading up to that. So I think I was probably just in a negative, in a deficit.
That's
But,
not so bad then.
It was a decent day.
Good day. Few pints. Few schooners.
Few pints.
Love that, mate. Love that. I've not actually been to Ladies' Day. Was it Musselburgh you went? What about me?
Musselburgh.
I just went to the Hibs game and that was it. Did the messages on Sunday morning. Nice, relaxing weekend for me. No fucking Ladies' Day or trips to Stansted or anything like that. No. Boring old time. But yeah. Listen, there's been a couple of bits happening at Hibs since we last spoke. We've had a new face in. We've signed Kenan B, 21-year-old striker from Fulham. Reported fee of £600,000. Mark and Craig, you both saw him at the weekend. I wasn't overly convinced when I first seen his name being bandied about, purely because I'd never heard of him before. But from what I've saw on Sunday, it looks like he might be a promising acquisition for us.
Absolutely, yeah. I thought he was really good, to be honest. I think the limited opportunities that he had with the ball at his feet, he done well with. And there was a couple of times where you can tell he obviously likes that physical aspect of the game. Because there was a time he was up again shoulder to shoulder with Carter Vickers, who is obviously one of the biggest guys in the league, one of the most physical guys, and he absolutely bullied him and brushed him aside and ran past him. So I think he'll maybe... I'm not sure he's the type of striker that's going to get 20 plus in a season, but certainly I think he'll cause a lot of defences, a lot of problems, and he'll link up play quite well. So I was impressed, like I say, with the limited opportunity he got.
Craig, it seems like he's kind of plugging a gap with the kind of characteristics that he has of a player that we've not really had for quite a long time.
He seems like he's one of these boys that'll... Because, I mean, I watched a compilation of his stuff for the Scotland under-21s when he got announced. And he seems like one of these boys that'll not only sort of be in a penalty box striker to finish moves off. I mean, you look at his, like Mark just said, his chance that hit the bar. He ragdolled Carter Vickers, and he done it with quite a bit of ease. So he looks like he'll be one of these boys as well that tries to fashion chances for himself. Which I think we need. We need as much. I know we'll talk about probably Venti and that in a bit, but Venti, in comparison to Bowie, seems to be, Venti kind of just penalty box exclusively, and that's it. Whereas Bowie gives us something different. Like Mark says, he likes the physical aspect, and he looks like, at 21, he's only going to keep developing as well. Getting him on a 4-year deal could prove to be quite a shrewd bit of business from the recruitment team that's not really had much hits.
Well, I mean, something's got to land. Something does have to land. I mean, you can't fling all this shit at the wall and expect none of it to stick. So hopefully this is the one that sticks. Another couple of bits. We've not heard much more about Luke McCowan. If you believe what you hear, we've had 2 rejected bids to Dundee that they've kind of kicked out the door. Alan Campbell's also had his name bandied about a little bit over the last week or two, which I think would be a half decent signing if we could get that over the line. And then something that's come up today, a couple of bits that have come up today, an incoming, which has been reported far and wide actually. It's Kwon Hyuk-kyu, 23-year-old South Korean defensive midfielder from Celtic, was on loan at St Mirren from January last season. There's talk about him coming in on loan. A defensive midfielder that we probably desperately need. I'm not too sure if there's going to be a buy option, Mark, but is that a name that excites you?
Honestly, I'd never heard them until about 15 minutes ago. Somebody texted me saying apparently we're meant to be signing this boy for Celtic, so I've done a very quick bit of reading up on him. Apparently, he did okay at St Mirren. It was something like 9 appearances, something like that.
He absolutely ragdolled our midfield at Easter Road when they scored 3-0. Like ragdolled them.
Like if that 9 games, and when he first signed, again, this is just based off 15 minutes of reading up on him. When they signed him, he was the Korean Rodri, apparently. So I would imagine if Celtic have signed him on a quite a 4 or 5 year deal.
5-year deal,
5-year deal. I would imagine if they've signed him on that, and you've seen the success they've had in the Asian market, there must be a player in there, and if he's put in those performances for St Mirren, then I'll take it, especially in that area, because I'm sure we'll talk about it. I think midfield's a massive problem at the moment. We're just so unbelievably passive and soft in that area. So if we get somebody that can come in and add a bit of physicality in there, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, Craig, like you said, ragdolled the Hibs midfield at Easter Road last season. He's not actually made a league appearance for Celtic, according to Wikipedia. So that might be wrong if he has. But that's where I'm basing my information from. I think
if there's an option with a loan to buy, again, similar to the Bowie signing, could be quite a shrewd bit of business, I think.
It's to be honest, see
when his contract is at Celtic, and you know how much he's on, and especially with how long he's got left in it. But the fact he's never kicked a ball for them in the league.
Well, I think I was reading up on this, right, and I think it was because he had to go back and do his national service, military stuff in South Korea. Not long after he signed, so he spent a season back home, and then I think last season, first half of the season he was at Celtic, and then the second half of the season he was at St Mirren. But no, I mean, from what I saw of him last year,
was he an Ange signing then? He was an Ange signing. He wasn't a Brendan Rodgers signing.
Ange signing. Yeah, Ange signing. Yeah.
Oh right, okay.
I'm sure he was anyway, or I'm not too sure because I think that even when Ange left, they were still making the signings from that Asian market. I think Yang was one of them that came in, who played on Sunday. I think. Yeah, so I think there. I mean, it might have been an Ange. I'm just saying it's an Ange signing, but it might not have been. From what I saw of him last year, I thought there was a half decent player in there, and if you'd have told me at the start of the window that would have been linked with him, I would have been fairly chuffed. It's a position that clearly we need to fill, and Kwon might just be the person to come in and do that. But
no, he signed under Rodgers. He signed last year, 5-year deal last year. Yeah.
So he'll have what 4 years left, and you'd imagine that if there is going to be a buy option, it's not going to be cheap.
No,
especially if he's the Korean Rodri. We've had the Gambian Roberto Carlos, and now maybe the Korean Rodri.
Anyone that's labelled the country and then a player is always shite, like the Scottish Messi with Ryan Gold and all that. Like
maybe he should just be like the Korean Marc Milligan. Would maybe be able to kind of curb our expectations a little bit like that. But someone who might be on their way out, someone who might be on their way out is Dylan Vente. It's been reported on a couple of outlets this afternoon that he could be on his way back to Netherlands with Zwolle I'm not too sure at the moment whether it would be a loan or a permanent. But for me
Supposedly it's
personally,
permanent.
the
Supposedly it's
first,
permanent.
oh really, the first initial thought that I had when I saw that was a wee bit of disappointment, because I've always kind of wanted Venti to do really well, and I think there is a player in there, but it's maybe just a case, Mark, of right player, wrong time.
Yeah, maybe. I think there is. I think there's a goal scorer in there. I think we touched on it last week to say that he does a lot of the stuff that he probably isn't like naturally accustomed to. Like we ask him to run the channels, running behind on off the shoulder, that type of stuff. I think he's the type of player that just wants to spend all his time in the box, in the 6 yard box, and be that real poacher type. And I just think with the way we play with one striker, it's just almost impossible to do that without just being completely isolated. So I think the way that we've played probably just we haven't suited each other. There's definitely a goal scorer in there. You know, we've seen it in the first few months when he was so clinical, and I think he scored 5 in his first 5 on target, something like that. So yeah, I think he would be good in a different team that plays slightly different. You would maybe thought that the signings we'd made would benefit him with Bowie and Kukarevich, but if we're not, it depends. If we're not going to change our style to having 2 strikers, then I just don't see how he can
Yeah,
play at his absolute best.
because I think if you're David Gray, then I know that Dylan Venti only came in last summer, Craig, but surely you're prioritising your new 600 grand signing over someone who was signed by somebody else.
Aye, but Venti was a 700 grand signing last summer, so it's like Mark says. There's definitely a goal scorer slash player in there. I just think that there was a lot of excuses made for Venti last season in terms of the system. We're not creating chances for him, and I do get that. But I also think when you really look at him, other than his sort of prowess in and around the penalty box, he's no quick, he's no strong, he's not overly mobile. He always seemed to be gassed by about 55, 60 minutes as
Yeah.
well. So he is, when you look at him as an overall player, he's actually quite limited in what he can offer when you compare him to, he was effectively Nisbet's replacement. And I know Nisbet wasn't the quickest, strongest, etc., but he did sort of put himself about a lot more than Venti did. And I don't think that with Venti, he probably had a lot of confidence last season either, given how it went. But I think it's just one of those where it seemed like it's a more expensive version of James Collins maybe back when we signed him.
A
You could see there
sexier
was
version as
something
well,
there,
maybe,
yeah.
because he's Dutch.
Yeah, aye, exactly. But you could see with Collins as well, there was something there,
Well,
given the fact
clearly,
what he
because
went on to be after he
he
left
went
us.
down
I
the
think
road and
he,
did so well down south, didn't he, for a plethora of different teams.
yeah, apart from when he was pissing on folk at the races, but that's another story.
Oh, well, that sounds like he
Sorry,
had a good
quick
time.
segue.
That's what Mark was up to at the weekend. Too
Just
busy
obviously
pissing on
hasn't
folk.
worked out for 21 way or another. But if it is a permanent, because the thing is that if it's a loan, he comes back next summer. He's only got a year left. We've not really got a chance to recoup any sort of fee for him. So it'd be good if we could get, if he does go, it goes permanently and goes some way to pay him back that expensive fee.
Well, I mean, fingers crossed. We do need to recoup the money if he goes. That's
And I do.
the
Sorry, can
bottom
I just
line,
add as
really.
well? I do think it's a case of, I know we're going to touch a bit on the sort of signings we've made in the last few years and the contract situation, but we've heard for the club all summer about clearing out the deadwood and getting rid of players that are no longer needed. If Venti's not in the plans, there's no point keeping him about just as a body. He's
Yeah.
as well being somewhere else playing that we can get a bit of money for him that we can reinvest back into the squad, especially with a couple of weeks that we go and we don't know what the situation with Ellie is either, if he's going to stay or go.
Exactly. I keep forgetting that we've even got Elian, to be honest. But no, I mean, if he does go, I'll be disappointed. But at the same time, you want him to do well for himself. Obviously, get the club a bit of money if he's not going to be playing, and that's the main thing at the end of the day. But just what you touched on there, Craig.
If we could recoup a bit of money to sort of try and cover as much of the Bowie fee as possible, I think that would represent a good bit of business for us.
Yeah, definitely. Just what you touched on a little bit there, Craig. We'll move on. And I saw a stat on Twitter. Someone put it in the chat. I can't remember if it was Sean or Ryan or one of you two. That the basket case that is Chelsea have signed 35 players in the last 2 years under the reign of Todd Bowley, which seems mental. It seems absolutely crazy amount of players to come in. Hibs, on the other hand, in the last 2 years have signed 43, including loans. Mark, that is astonishing. To see it written down like that, I know there's been a lot of players in, a lot of players out, but 43, and we're sitting here wondering why it's not working.
Yeah, and it's the product of like sacking managers. It's exactly what happens, and Chelsea are a similar kind of club who often sack their managers after really short periods of time. And I think when you sack managers and bring in a new regime who's got his own ideas, his own philosophies, and all this kind of stuff, there is always a turnover. So there's always players going out and players coming in. So it's a total product of how many times we've changed managers. I think this is why you say that managers need time. David Gray, if he stays for let's just say 3 or 4 years, right, he'll have one period of transition and that'll be it, which will be now, where he gets rid of a lot of players. I think there's 15 out of contract in the summer, and he brings in his own. And then after that, so the summers to follow, there should only ever be 4 or 5 or whatever, or slight tweaks, to make to just balance the squad. Whereas if we get rid of David Gray, the same thing will happen again. Somebody new will come in with their own ideas. They'll get rid of all the players in the team and then bring in their own, and then so on and so forth. So it'll keep happening if we don't stick with a manager eventually. And I think if we're not going to stick with David Gray, then who do we stick with? Do you know what I mean? There's already people online like saying that he shouldn't be in the job and should be sacked and all that, and it's just like, where does it stop? Where does it end?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like you say, I mean, I can't echo that enough that it's just the product of changing managers, people wanting their own players in, and then you've got the players who are kind of knocking about who've been signed by a manager 2 managers ago that aren't getting any game time, that are still on the books. You shared a list, Mark, in the chat earlier on of players who are out of contract at the end of the season. We've got Martin Boyle, Josh Campbell, Lewis Miller, Chris Cadden, Noan Kenny, Jake Doyle-Hayes, Luke Amos, Rocky Bushiri, Junior Hoylett, Kanayo Megwa, Max Boric, and Harry McCurdy, who I
And
think...
Joe Newell.
I don't know if Joe Newell is out of contract or
Neil
anything. I think that's...
deal in the summer, mind.
Yeah, he signed a deal in the summer when he got the captaincy.
Oh, okay.
So those players are, I think, the ones that are out of contract in the summer. Jordan Abita, maybe, I'm not too sure how long his extension was for, Craig, if you can shed any light on it. But that's a lot of players that aren't getting an awful lot of game time that maybe if we saw all them move on, albeit without a fee, we could then start to kind of reset and rebuild a little bit next summer, Craig.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous amount of money as well. When you look at, I mean, you can go through that list. I can't imagine McCurdy, especially McCurdy and Nohan Kennett, are cheap. Jake Doyle-Hayes as well. So there's 3 right off the bat, plus Boyle as well. I know Boyle's the one that's more the first team player, and the other 3 are kind of not getting a sniff. It's I think the only word that can be used to describe the recruitment over the last 2-3 years is just absolutely shambolic. That we've managed to accrue a squad worth of players, and Malcolm Mackay said it in his interview with Sky at the weekend, that's so unbalanced.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at the squad any given weekend, even the game on Saturday there. I couldn't tell you what. Sorry, the game on Sunday. There's no cohesion within the team in terms of how especially the midfield as well. Marc said at the start, the midfield area for years now has been such a massive, massive concern, and you've still got 2 of them playing in there that were getting picked under Jack Ross. And that just goes to show you how long. I mean, Ross got sacked, what, December 21, I think it was. So even if you give because I think that might have been one of Josh Campbell's first proper starts for Hibs. So even if you go for 22 onwards, him and Newell have been through Maloney, Johnson, Montgomery, and now Gray.
Yeah.
And we're still seeing the same issues in the middle of the park.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole unbalance, the fact, you even go even a wee bit further back. Jake Doyle, he's had a good first 2-3 months and got given a brand new 3-year contract. Alan Del Ferrier was 4 days after Monty got the job. He got a new 3-year extension, so his contract doesn't actually end until 2027.
Yeah.
I didn't get how.
I'm not too sure what the thought process is. It seems awfully scattergun in
It's
terms
very
of
Hearts. Was it
offering.
Hearts under Stendhal, or maybe under Levine? Mind they just kept signing. Mind they had boys like that. Mallory Martin on like a 3-year deal. They couldn't get rid of him. They had, was it Demore or something? Another
Yeah,
centre midfielder. They had him on a 3-4 year deal. They couldn't get rid of. It's just
I'm
very.
sure they only got rid of him last season or season before.
Yes, start last season, I think. Aye, so it's been very scattergun's a good word to use, if you're being polite, but fucking shambolic if you're actually being honest and looking at how bad it is.
Yeah, it is pretty bad, Mark. But do you think it's all well and good saying reset, but we might come to next summer and there's players who are going to still be in contract for another year or two who are going to want to get off the books, who other teams aren't going to be willing to pay fees for, and then we're still stuck in that same cycle. We're then buying players and signing players on 2-3 year deals that summer, and it'll just keep rolling and rolling and rolling. So what do we actually have to do to get it right?
All I want is what needs to happen to get it right is David Gray and Malcolm Mackay and whoever else is in that recruitment team needs to sit down, and David Gray needs to lay out exactly what he wants to do, what formation he wants to play, how he wants to play, whether it's wing play, if it's possession based, if it's playing for the back, whatever it is that he wants to do, he lays it out there, and he says, right, what players can play in that system. Okay, we've got 60% of the squad that can, so the 40% we move them on and we replace them with players who I believe, based on the scouting and all the rest of it, can play in that system. And that's it. It's something I'm really vocal on. Teams sign players just for the sake of signing them, and it's not to build them into a system or whatever. This is how you end up. You end up with far too many boys on the books that you can't get rid of, don't get game time, and that just don't work. It's like Dylan Venti. If we had a system or we knew exactly what our system was going to be, we would have never signed Venti, because I don't think we've played with two strikers since we signed him. And we know that he can't be up there on his own because he's a poacher. So it needs to be a real clear way of playing, and then you go out and you buy players to fit into that system. If you do it any other way, it doesn't work.
Well, are you listening, Malky? Are you listening, Mr. Gordon? If you are, get this man in the room. Get him down at the table.
And I'm sure they do that, right? And I'm sure it's been done in the past. And I get that sometimes you sign a player if they become available because you feel they're good and they can fit in or whatever. But the best
doing that for all the signings.
No, you can't. And that's why I worry about signing so many players in this transfer window. I get that it's the reset and you need to rebuild and all that, but was Nicky Cadden always part of the plan, or did we sign him just because? Was like Junior Hoylett always part of the plan, or did like all these players that you bring in, was it players that you really wanted, or was it because they were offered to you and you thought, may as well take them?
Yeah, those ones are a bit of a concern to me as well. No, particularly the players themselves, because I think Hoylett gives me a slight whiff of McGeady
Yeah.
in terms of the injuries and all that and the age that he's at. But like Nicky Cadden got released for Barnsley at the end of May, and then he signs for Hibs at the start of August. Like, so where's the 2 month gap? Surely he's not been. I mean, you even look at somebody like Ryan Jack as well, who's still out of contract. They can't all just be taking their time to choose the right offer, because clubs aren't going to sit about and wait. So I understand where you're coming from with that, Mark. Is that just a case of we've real, is it Chris Cadden been sitting about going, oh, my brother's still not signed up for a team, and somebody's overheard them. Obviously, it's not going to be as daft as that, but it does. You talk about all we've heard for the club all summer when they've actually done press stuff is David Gray has been so forthright in his view that we need the right people and we need the right characters, and we're not just signing people for the sake of it.
Thing is, did you kind of believe that though after we'd only got Bursic, Smith, O'Hara, and Ekpiteta? Did you kind of believe that maybe would have been the case up until what was it last week that we get 3 signings in one day?
I mean, I don't know. It could be a combination of a few things. Like, yeah, we kept hearing this stuff about, can the Euros are on. What the fuck difference does the Euros make to us? We're not going to be signing anybody that was playing in the Euros.
Yeah,
There's
that's
not going to
acid.
be any teams. There's not going to be any teams in the Premier League, especially, that are waiting on potentially a signing coming in that played for fucking Georgia that's going to release a centre mid or a centre back or whatever to come to Hibs. Like, I didn't see where the correlation is in the sort of food chain with that.
Do you not think it's just a bit of an excuse?
I have thought it's an excuse. I know I'm not privy to how transfers in football actually work, but there's been a kind of there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of football players out there. We surely just can't be waiting for the right one. Like there has to be another way of identifying. I'm sick of hearing this word about characters as well. The right characters. We've heard that for the last 3 years. The team's not got a lick of character about it.
No.
There's none. It's what I said probably on Ramble episode 47. There are a group of guys that if your daughter brought home, you'd be like, oh, sound, he's a nice guy. But a bit boring.
Apart
A
from
bit
the
shite.
Curdy, maybe.
A bit like there's nothing about them. Whereas I think obviously signing somebody like Hoylett brings in a bit of experience. Bowie, who's a youthful Scottish centre forward who will be looking to, do you know what I mean, a good 18, 24 months at Hibs, he could find himself potentially in the Scotland squad, follow the route Nisbet and Shankland have taken. The two centre halves, O'Hara seems like a bit of a leader. Nicky Cadden again gives us a bit of something different, a bit of with decent delivery for the left hand side, a natural left footer that we've not really got apart from Obita. So I just didn't understand how it takes so long, and we've made noises about how important this season is, and again we've went in underprepared, and we're now seeing it. We're 2 games in, we've conceded 5 goals and scored none.
Yeah. No, and you're absolutely right, though. And the thing that frustrates me more than anything else is you see, teams like St Mirren, especially, the last couple of years, even now St Johnstone, Dundee United, they are getting players in that no one's ever heard of, and they're good. They're making positive impacts in their team. You look at that Olasanya for St Mirren, the boy that scored twice against us, the Irish fella, and then St Johnstone have got Sidibe, who looks like he's on his way to Aberdeen after Miovski's away to Girona.
And
And
who I think are good ones a good one to thingy right now because of the interest that's in him is Luke McCowan, who was playing in the Championship for however many years. And now he's been at Dundee. He's had a good 2 years at Dundee, and now we're looking to pay. They're what 600-700 grand for him.
Yeah,
like it just to me, it's like the club are just trying to be far too clever. I'm not saying McCowan 2 years ago was the right signing. Absolutely not.
No, but I just think
But
that the club maybe missed that
But see
boat.
with that, if you look in the right places, you'll find the right things. It's not a case of running everything through fucking Y-Scout and seeing who hits what metric.
But this is the
Because
product of what I talked about earlier. And I didn't mean to sound like a broken record, but you set a player up for success if you sign them to fit into a system.
yeah,
And you see that Robinson's been in that role for a few years now. He knows exactly what he wants. He knows that whatever chink in the armour, he can go out and get somebody that he feels is an improvement. And if that player, and I hate to bring it up, but look at Man City, right? I know they're like, we're never going to compare us to Man City, right? But Pep Guardiola goes out and signs. He never goes and signs like absolute like players for Real Madrid or Barcelona or Bayern Munich or whatever. He signs players that he knows are going to fit into a system, and he gets them in, and they slot right in nicely. And 9 times out of 10, they go on to become world class players because of his system. And it's the same with guys like Robinson and all that. It happens when you set a player up for success.
So Sir Alex Ferguson, Pep Guardiola, Stephen Robinson, they're all in the conversation. You know what I mean?
Well, arguably, Stephen Robinson's the best St Mirren manager since Alex Ferguson.
True. Aye. I mean, they've still got a half decent chance of going through in Europe, don't they? We'll find out a wee bit more about that after Thursday night, but we're not here to talk about St Mirren. This is not the St Mirren ramble, guys. We'll move on from transfers and chat quickly about the Celtic game before we kind of move on to something that's a little bit less depressing. But Celtic on Sunday, boys, 2-0 defeat. Not a great performance all round. Picked up a wee bit second half, but nowhere near the level of performance that you'd expect from a Hibs team at home, especially to Celtic in the first half. And I think, Craig, the first goal is kind of personifies that. Lazy, lack of concentration, and just what was going on for that goal.
Yeah, the only positive that you can take for Sunday after how it started is that it only finished at 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way they started, that could have been any score they wanted. The first goal, I mean, I don't know if you can be too critical of Bursic for the save.
I've not got any criticism on Bursic at all. I thought the save was good.
Can you'd be splitting hairs? Could he push it out differently? Could he maybe try and just tip it so it goes like behind the whatever? But the non-marking of Kuhn in the middle of the box, Forrest, they're just so fast to react. And the one thing you really notice about Celtic as well, when you play them, is how they actually make the ball do the work. And I think there was a period in the first half. It was on the West Stand touchline, and Josh Campbell was just running about like a headless chicken.
Mm-hmm.
And I think between McGregor, O'Reilly, and maybe Taylor or something, they just literally done about 2 triangles round him, and he was fucking chasing his tail. And that for me is the biggest difference when you play teams like that, is that you see how far ahead they are up there, that they know they can just make the ball do the work. And we've not got the composure or the game intelligence to maybe just sit off a bit and let them do that. We go fucking running about after them, which then creates the spaces, which obviously you look at that in a different context, but then you look at the second goal, and that's exactly what happens. You get four boys drawn towards one player, and then you give the fucking Celtic captain almost 20 yards of freedom in the middle of the park.
Yeah, well, I was going to move on and chat to Mark about that. Second goal is, like you've said, Craig, they've passed us out of our positions, and then it's obviously ended up at McGregor's feet, 25 yards from goal. No one's around him, and he's stuck one in the top bins. I wanted to know from your perspective, Mark, was it poor from us, or was it just extremely clever play from Celtic?
Obviously, it's a brilliant finish. You can't take it away for that. But it comes from Marc, Big Marv. I can't mind how you pronounce his surname.
It comes from Josh Campbell with a poor pass back to the goalie.
But before that, it comes from a poor pass from Thingy, who looked uncomfortable, like on the ball throughout the whole game. And then Josh Campbell. I think there's a few people. Dylan Levitt. He's on his heels, lack of movement in that area allows Callum McGregor to just run through, and then obviously it's a brilliant finish. There was loads of that in midfield, just so passive, it's unbelievable. Dylan Levitt throughout the whole game, like there was so many moments where he was caught on his heels, no running when he should have been running, letting people past him, waiting for the ball to come to him. He receives a pass and he's waiting for the ball to come to him that allows the Celtic player to come round and take it off him. Just so powder puff, and the whole midfield just looked out of their depth on Sunday there. And I think Big Marv at the back looked awfully uncomfortable in the ball. I thought he night and day compared to St Mirren. I thought against St Mirren, he made that one mistake, fair enough, but he looked fairly composed. He looked quite solid. every time he was on the ball on Sunday, he looked really, and he misplaced quite a few passes which might have got in his head, playing for the first time at home in a league game against Celtic, all these things. But he looked really, really poor, and he didn't help us at all on Sunday.
No, and I think, across the 11 in that first half, especially, Craig, there can't have been many pass marks going into the break at half time. But it was the frustrating thing was, I mean, it's fair enough going 2-0 down to Celtic, but when there's a lack of fight, a lack of desire, and then that in turn leads to low confidence throughout the team, that's where the frustration comes in for the support, when you can clearly see that the players aren't given 110%. But what does it come down to?
It's a lack of character, I think. It's a lack of belief almost. I don't think, Celtic players' abilities are clear, right? You've got guys like O'Reilly who's been touted for a £15-20 move elsewhere.
£15-20 cheap.
15-20 million. £15-20 million move. You've got some of the guys that they like. That Kuhn was a good few million that they paid. They paid what, 4 or 5 million for Carter Vickers, so on and so forth. But there's a lack of belief in, because when we did get the ball, we treated it like a hot tatty. There's nobody in that, and this is what you'd expect. This is what I'd expect for Joe Newell. Now, especially being the captain, being like, fuck it, Ken, what? Give me the ball. Just give me the ball, and we'll start. I might lose it over and over again, but I'm going to keep showing for it. I'm going to keep showing for it, and I'm not just digging out Newell here. But there's so many instances in that game where you've got Josh Campbell was in a decent area at one point, and he just passed it straight. I think Rudy had made an overlapping run round the outside of Johnstone, and he just passed it right to Johnstone. It was almost like he forgot that it's not like FIFA and it kind of glitch and just go through the legs. And it's a complete lack of character, lack of composure, lack of belief. And it's worrying that happened, that's happening in the second game of the season.
For me, that was the big thing. That was the big thing that I came away thinking on Sunday was composure. Because we had maybe under 30% possession, right? And you could tell it was like we had such a lack of the ball that whenever we did get the ball, it was almost like, fucking hell, what do we do it? And we straight away were looking for like Hollywood passes, diags, threading balls in behind, all that. And see if we had just taken a step back and said, let's keep the ball, get it back to the goalie and reset. Let's play it along the deck for just a minute, string 5 passes along. And I think there was maybe a 5-10 minute spell where we did that. We finally just got the ball on the deck, we played it down to the full-backs, Miller got up, and we created a couple of chances. It was probably our best spell of the game. If you're taking any positives, it would be that little spell. And it was purely because we found a tiny bit of composure. And I get it's difficult to have such little possession, but see when you get the ball, then they just straight away be thinking, right, we've got the ball, we need to make it count. Just reset, have it for just a couple of minutes, get a feel for the ball, and then try and make something happen. But Josh Campbell, man, that threading in behind, right, I get it, right, let's try something. But how many times did he try that wee thread, the eye needle ball through and behind the defence? It's like there's other ways you can make goals happen.
I think there was I don't know if it was like the first maybe minute or minute and a half before they scored, but I can't remember if it was Kukarevich or not. But somebody got at Scales quite early on. And
that's Quan signed, by the way.
Oh, has he? Confirmed?
Yeah, confirmed by the Hibs WhatsApp.
Breaking news on the Ramble.
Breaking news, stay with us here. It's Jim White on the Hibs Ramble. Can confirm that Quan has signed for Hibernian. They are delighted to put pen to paper on Alonso for the duration of the 24-25 campaign.
That's plenty.
Cheers, mate.
So doesn't look like there's an option to buy. So a good sign on that. That's good.
I'm chuffed with it.
6 foot 3.
I forgot where I was there. Oh, sorry. The Scales thing. Scales is so we seen when he was at Aberdeen, right? Scales came to Easter Road and had a fucking nightmare twice in the one season. He got sent off both times. The second time was that 6-0 game where we absolutely tore him to bits. That when that first happened, we should have been fucking Kukarevich should have been pinned to Scales. And whenever we got the ball for that period of time, it should have just been fucking shelled to Kukarevich for a good 2-3 minutes just to make him feel extremely uncomfortable. But we didn't. And that again comes down to game intelligence as well, realising that fucking hell, he might not fancy it today. I'm going to see what I can do and put myself right up against him. And the two on that right hand side, Boyle and Kukarevich, should have been able to get the better of Taylor and Scales, but they never.
I mean, you would. He's been one of their most consistent players, though, over the last year. I think, apart from Kyogo, he's the player who's made the most appearances for them last season.
He's blessed as fuck. Like,
I think. I mean, he's a naturally left-sided centre half. They were talking about him on the radio a couple of weeks ago.
Against Aberdeen, when he was at Aberdeen, he's fucking shite. If you get at him, he's shite. And we never done that.
This is it. And, you know, it's something that, you know, we've only really seen the Neil Lennon team do it, is go toe-to-toe with the Old Firm and take the game to them. Make them work hard if they're going to beat you. And I've just not seen that from Hibs teams, whether it now be Gray's Hibs team, Montgomery, Maloney, Johnson, Jack Ross. There's not been that mentality. And I don't know, it might not be the manager, like you say, it might be because of the lack of character in the players, but we did start to see maybe a little bit of an upturn of fortunes after about the hour mark. We made the changes and we decided to push forward a little bit more, take a little bit more consideration on the ball, whether it be because we decided to start playing or because Celtic dropped into first gear from second gear. I mean, it's tough to really say, but Marc, you said it earlier on, maybe there is a couple of positives to take from that second half performance, especially going into playing Celtic again at the weekend.
I wouldn't say so. I think there was a 5-10 minute spell apart from that with the nearly oblivion him. I think the positives you can take is Bowie coming on, looked pretty decent. We've had some possession, not much, but we just had a tiny little bit of composure in that 5 minute spell, but then we lost it again.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't much because, like you said, Celtic didn't even need to even just about get out of second gear. They absolutely strolled it, and I'm sure if they had have went up through the gears, they would have probably put 4, 5, 6 past us, which is worrying. Yeah. I think we need to change the team. I think we need to change the midfield. If he's available, get that. Oh no, he might not be able to.
He'll not be available because he'll not be able to play against Celtic.
Well, we need to change something drastically because if we insist on playing Levitt, Campbell and Newell in midfield, we'll be in big trouble this season.
Yeah, well, I was going to just move on to Celtic on... Is it on Sunday? Is it Sunday at Parkhead?
Yeah.
Sunday, yeah.
I was just going to move on just before we stop talking about Celtic, because I feel like all I've done is say Celtic this episode. Craig, how do we change it up? Do we go 4-3-3 again? Surely Levitt, Newell and Campbell can start again. And in your opinion, is it damage limitation or are we going there to give him a bloody nose?
I mean, I know we can say about is it going to be those three again, but who else have we got to play in midfield?
Well, not Quan anyway. We can't play him.
Yeah. Amos, I don't know what the script with him is. I don't know if
Mariah Welsh.
I thought Mariah Welsh would have started on Sunday, to be honest. I know he didn't have a great game against St Mirren, but I thought that's a perfect game for Mariah Welsh because he's a proper terrier. And at least he gets stuck in and works super hard.
Possibly, but I don't know if there's one of it, because you always see it when the so-called bigger sides play in the early rounds of the Cup, that they decide to maybe Schmeichel will only play and they'll maybe play Ralston at right back and they maybe play fucking like Maeda up front instead of Kyogo or something like that.
Wouldn't mind if they played Ralston in goals instead of Schmeichel.
But it's one of those. I don't know. I really don't know, because I didn't see where a victory for us would come from at this moment in time. But on the same token, we can't just be going there thinking, "Fuck, we need to just get out of here without taking a pumping." Like, at the end of the day, I've seen worse Hibs teams in the past beat the Old Firm when an absolute doom was expected. So there's no reason to think that we can't go through there and get a result. But we need to be playing at absolute. We need to be playing at our absolute maximum and hope that they have more than half of them on an off day.
Well, I'm going to say something that I've been saying for the last 14, 15 years. We're due beating them through there. We are due beating them through there. Overdue. So
my laddies almost went through high school, like primary school and high school since we last beat them.
Danny Galbraith. The Danny Galbraith game, yeah.
Christ almighty.
when the outfielders wore the goalie kit. We beat them that night. Absolutely mental. But yeah, I mean, listen, Sunday it's a new game. It's a new week. We'll maybe have, another body in by the time we go there on Sunday. Who knows? It might be a Luke McCowan, eyes emoji. It might be Alan Campbell. It might be absolutely nobody. But one thing's for certain is that David Gray can't approach this game the way they approached the game on Sunday, because it's just not going to work. And we want to go through in the cup. David Gray's made that abundantly clear.
My big thing would be play two strikers. Play Bowie and Hukarevich up top, play a 4-4-2 or something like that, and I think they both would feed off each other. I think play 4-4-2, man. Have a decent go at them. I think this powder puff midfield free, it needs to stop, man. It needs to be get it up, hoof it up, some breaks the ball, that'll do.
And the thing is, we've seen some teams go to Parkhead and Ibrox and stuff, and I'm not trying to say that the teams that are in Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen, Celtic and Rangers just play route one, hoof ball, and have a certain characteristic of player. But, you look at your St Johnstones and stuff and Motherwells, and they've come away from these stadiums getting results. And you look at the kind of players that they've got, and they've got players who are no frills. Well, for the most part, no frills, mostly big hoodies. And sometimes they're getting results. And that might just be Celtic's Achilles heel. So if we can play like us St Johnstone and get ourselves through in the cup, I'll be absolutely delighted.
Make the defenders defend. I was actually thinking this in the first half. It's like, how fucking easy must it be? Can everybody thinks Carter Vickers, what a fucking player he is, what a player. How? When did we ever get to see how good a defender he is? Because in a game like Sunday, especially in the first half, he had zilch to do. He had absolutely nothing to do.
Yeah.
So force him to defend. Force him in Scales to defend. Force Taylor to defend. Force Johnstone to defend. And then we'll see how good they are.
Absolutely. But we'll wrap it on the Celtic chat just now. And what we are going to do, listeners, is we're going to move on to a wee quick quiz segment. Now, I've got Mark and Craig in front of me here. I've got a number of questions on my phone. We're going to do how many answers can you get right in 60 seconds. To make it fair, Mark won the coin toss before we came on air, so he's going to go first. Craig is going to mute his laptop so he can't hear anything that we're saying. He can't hear any of the questions. Unless, Craig, you're a very, very good lip reader and I just don't know that. In which case...
No, I'll
tell me now.
I'll just stay off into the
distance. So Craig's going to...
look at like transfer.
So Craig's going to mute his laptop just now, and we'll move on to Mark and get the questions. Mark, are you ready for this?
Wait, how am I going to know when to come back?
I'll give you a wave.
All right, okay.
I'll give you a wave. Just keep an eye.
I'll just be sitting here for the next half an hour.
Mark, how are you feeling?
I'm shy at these things, but let's go.
Let's go. Right, 60 seconds on the clock. Mark, Duncan, your time starts now. Name me any one of the famous five.
Eddie Turnbull.
What squad number does Warren O'Hora wear?
Oh God. 5.
How many goals did we score in last year's Conference League?
11.
How many goals did we concede in last year's Conference League?
12.
How many Edinburgh Derby goals has Jason Cummings scored? 10 seconds.
4.
Name one of this summer's departures.
Oh God. Oh God. Oh no. I couldn't think of one in time.
That's your time. Right, Craig, come back in. Come back in, Craig. So Mark made it through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He made it through 6 questions. I'll not tell you how many you got right just now. So, Craig, you've got 60 seconds on the clock. How are you feeling? You're quite a quiz master, aren't you?
We'll see. We'll see if you can put together a better effort than Sean did the last time.
I think I have. And just something that Mark probably forgot. This is a 60-second timer. Mark was thinking, trying to calculate and all the rest of it. So I only got through 6 questions. But, Craig, if you are ready, I'll put your minute on the clock.
I'm ready.
Okay, your time starts now. Name any of the famous 5.
Laurie Riley.
What squad number does Warren O'Hora wear?
5.
How many goals did we score in last year's Conference League?
15.
How many goals did we concede in last year's Conference League?
16.
How many Edinburgh Derby goals has Jason Cummings scored?
4.
Name any of this summer's departures.
Jojo Walcott.
How many permanent managers, including David Gray, have there been since Paul Heckingbottom got sacked?
5.
And that's your time. Well done, guys. You've done really well. Both of you.
So what would it be? Ross?
Well, I'll tell you. I'll
Ross,
tell you now.
Maloney.
So the first question, name any of the famous 5. Mark, you said Eddie Turnbull. Craig, you said Laurie Riley. Of course, you were both right. So you both get a point there. What squad number does Warren O'Hora wear? Of course, he wears number 5. You both got that right. The third question, how many goals did we score in last year's Conference League? The correct answer was 12. I think, Mark, you said 11. Craig, you said 14 or something?
Only 12?
We only scored 12, yeah. 6 at home against Inter Descaldes, 1 away against Inter Descaldes, 3 at home against Luzerne, 2 away against Luzerne.
That was what I was missing, that away goal against him, when I was counting up.
I thought we scored 4 against.
So that was 14 goals conceded in the Conference League last year. This one surprised me, actually. How many Edinburgh Derby goals has Jason Cummings scored? You both said 4. The correct answer is 8. He scored 8 times for Hibs against Hearts.
Wow.
Yeah. And the second to final one.
Can't be right. We never played them that much.
Well, it said on Transfer Market he's got 8 goals against Hearts and he never scored against them for Rangers. So
let's go through this. So the 2 in the cup at Easter Road, the header at Tynecastle.
2 in the cup at Easter Road. No, 1 in the cup at Easter Road.
No, but across 2 different games.
Aye, 2 in the cup at Easter Road. The header at Tynecastle.
The 1-0 game and the 3-0 game. And then he scored another one at Tynecastle, where he shushed the
Yeah.
score gained, and then done that. So there's 4.
The Frank not the Frank de JJ game, the Farid El Alagui game.
All right, there we go, 5.
There's no way he scored more than that. 3 goals more than that.
I don't think that's right.
Well, Transfer Market said that, and if that correct answer was 5, you still both got it wrong. Name one of this summer's departures. Mark didn't get there in time. Craig, you say Jojo Walcott, which of course is right. And how many permanent managers, including David Gray, have we had since Paul Heckingbottom got sacked? And the correct answer was 5, and that was Jack Ross, Sean Maloney, Lee Johnson, Nick Montgomery, and now David Gray. So
You didn't get there in time though, Craig, did you? You didn't say 5 in time.
no, he said 5 in time. Yeah, he got there. Well, about a second or 2 to spare, but he got there in time. So Craig, that gives you a correct total of 4. Mark, it gives you a correct total of 2. Which is a bit disappointing, to be honest, for someone who, you know.
To be fair, I'm gutted because I would have got that goals right, but I forgot about that stupid away goal in Andorra. So I'd spent too long calculating the goals and didn't even get it right.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough.
What did I put for the goals conceded? 13 or 16?
I think you were pretty close with it, to be honest.
I said 16.
I know I said 15.
But yeah, because you were 1 away from the goal scored. So even if you'd have got that right, Mark, you still wouldn't have. It wouldn't have went to a tie break.
My mind went completely fucking hell. My mind nearly went blank with the famous 5, and then the fucking
You took ages to answer that.
Mate, and then mate, I'm not good at these things. And then the players out. It took me ages to answer that as well, and I didn't even get there.
Right, okay. Before we wrap up, we will answer the listener questions.
Now it's time to answer the Hibs Ramble listener questions.
So first off, as always, John McIntosh is asking, what's for dinner, folks? Craig, start with you.
Chicken burgers, I believe.
Oh, fried, grilled. Tell me about
it. I think it's just like M&S chicken fillets that'll be chucked in the air fryer.
And then on the side?
Wee bit of lettuce, chili sauce on one. I'll probably go mayo on the other one, and then maybe just some wee poke chips, I think.
A wee poke chips. Nice sweet corn or that?
Nope, absolutely not. Fuck that. You don't get.
You know a sweet corn man?
No, nah. You don't get a physique like this eating vegetables, young man.
Green giant. Mark, what are you having for your dinner?
I'm having homemade chicken gyros.
Oh, here we go. That's more like it. How are you making the gyros?
To be fair, we're doing it. We've got like the wraps and all that, and we're just going to have some chicken, a wee bit of rice, some feta, some chips in the wrap with it as well, and then a wee bit of tzatziki on top.
Oh, I love a bit of tzatziki, you know. A cultured man right there, a cultured man. I don't know what I'm having for my dinner. I will find out when I go through after the podcast, and my lovely wife
It'll
will.
be something good though, because you only just got the messages yesterday or Saturday.
Sunday.
Sunday. Whatever day this is. Fuck me.
Yeah, we just got the messages on Sunday, so it'll be something good. There's a plethora of options available in the fridge, so fingers crossed it's something very tasty. But I'm not too sure it's going to be chicken gyro. Can you please share a picture with us, Mark, once it's ready in the chat?
I shall.
Be very excited to see that.
He won't. He only speaks to us when it comes up to podcast time, and then he doesn't speak to us again for the rest of the day.
He has it on mute.
I've got the chat. I've got the chat on mute.
Next up, we've got Kevin Wilson, and he's asking, based on the brief but encouraging cameo, Bibby looks a player. Do you think he'll be suited to playing through the middle or out wide?
I think Marc's suggestion, go him and Kukarevich through the middle.
I'd quite like to see that.
He looks like he could maybe run the channels and all that kind of stuff if needed, but I would say ideally you want him in and around the box.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I would agree with the boys, Kevin. So if you can let David Gray know that that's where we want him to play, then that'd be great. That'd be great. Keith Robertson next, and he's saying getting the basics of passing and marking wrong led to a poor first half. didn't threat until the hour mark. Rudy had another good shift and Bowie looked great when he came on. Unlucky not to get a goal. If he can play like that going forward, we might have a better season if that lasts. Completely agree. I thought another promising performance again from Rudy Molotnikov. Craig, what did you make of his game on Sunday?
Really good. I thought he was one of the actual only bright sparks in the first half. He had a couple of opportunities where he took Johnstone on and got past him, and he's one of these boys that doesn't look quick, but
he's like deceptively quick.
Yeah, he's not got like the searing, what Martin Boyle pace used to be like. But he can certainly shift it over sort of 10, 15
like
yards.
Lewis Stevenson.
But no, really good. I think,
like Lewis Stevenson a bit in that regard.
Aye, a wee bit. But no, good. I think Rudy's obviously done well in the group stages in the League Cup, and he's deserving his spot in the team now. Obviously, you probably think that if Ellie was fit and didn't have this transfer speculation around him, we maybe wouldn't have got as many minutes and as much time. But it's deserved so far, and I hope he keeps it up for the rest of the season.
Just to jump on the back of that, if we do see Ellie, you and Marc not leave before the window shuts, do you think it's now Yuan's place to then earn the jersey back off of Molotnikov?
Well, I think that's just it's an attitude test, isn't it? It's an attitude test. If he's willing to put in the effort, listen, I would always say that at their best, I would start with Yuan. But if he has to work for it, and it might be a bit of an attitude test for David Gray, is he going to show the desire to earn that shirt back, or is he just going to spit the dummy and bottle it? In which case, we want to get rid of him, don't we? So we'll see how it goes. But for me, Yuan should still be ahead of Molotnikov, but Molotnikov's definitely a good option if we don't. If we lose.
I mean, he's certainly earned his keep at the moment. So we'll just kind of needs to wait and see when Yuan eventually comes back from injury what David Gray decides to do with it. I think it would be a shame
when he's fit as well.
Yeah,
Nicky Cadden will play in that area as well, so there's going to be a lot of competition for places.
Absolutely, and I wonder if that will maybe see us put Molotnikov out on loan then, because there will be a lot of players who can cover that base. But what would you rather happen then? Rudy Molotnikov get on loan to top level championship or lower Premiership and get the games throughout the course of the season, or sit on the bench behind Hoylett, behind Yuan, behind Cadden?
He needs to get. I think he's already had the exposure in the Hibs first team now that I don't think he would be best served going out on loan. I think he's going to be better in and around, independent on the system that we want to play going forward. Maybe because when you look at the team on Sunday, it did seem as if Levitt was playing a lot higher compared to Campbell and Newell.
Mm-hmm.
So is it possibly this 4-2-3-1 shape is Rudy a chance to move into the 10?
Maybe.
Maybe Bowie coming off the right, Yuan coming off the left, Kukarevich through the middle. But no, I'd like to see him stay at Hibs and be in and around the first team squad for this season.
I would agree as well. I don't think I would like to see him go out on loan. Next up is Stephen Bell, and he's saying it has to be the last time that we ever see a midfield three of Newell, Levitt and Campbell, surely. Genuinely all over the place, offered nothing going forward, and all three looked clueless. Newell is never captain material, strikes zero fear into the opposition, and no hope to his own team. Craig, we know your thoughts on this, but Marc, I'm keen to hear what you think about Joe Newell's captain material. Is he?
I don't think so. I think if you're praising Newell, it's about how he's always quite neat and tidy in the middle of the park. Well, when he's playing well, he's quite neat and tidy in the middle of the park. But is he somebody that what Craig touched on earlier? Is it somebody that's going to lift his head, shout for the ball, be in those positions every single time, regardless if we're getting beat or if he's playing not very well? I don't think he is. I think O'Hora looks more. I know you can't give him the captaincy straight away, but he could easily be the captain next season. He looks really good. I really like him so far. Yeah. But no, for me, it's a case of Joe Newell's one of the longest serving players now. He's a bit of a stalwart in midfield, and now that captaincy makes him quite undroppable, to be honest. I think that's the only reason. Because it's purely on a consistency of game time is why he's been given that. You don't know what he's like in the dressing room and that, obviously, but certainly on the pitch, I don't see it.
Completely agree. Next up, we've got Gardener J6, and he's asking, what's happening with Martin Boyle? He's been rubbish since he came back from injury last season, and I think I've got to agree. Martin hasn't been hitting the heights that we kind of expect of him, but Craig, are we maybe expecting a little bit too much? He's clearly he's not got time on his side anymore. He's had those two massive long-term injuries that have definitely hampered his speed for one. Are we expecting too much of him now and relying too heavily on him and maybe kind of expecting him to be 27, 28-year-old Martin Boyle?
I think the issue is that without Boyle's pace, there's not really much else to Boyle. And I think it should now be a case of shaking hands and saying thanks very much for your service and away and live your best life in Australia, because with Martin Boyle without pace, I mean, he got caught relatively comfortably by McGregor on Sunday when he tried to go for a run. And I just don't see what Boyle gives us if he's not got that pace. So yeah, we would be thank you very much for your service, but all the best for the future.
It's clearly something that the club aren't afraid to do is stick by sentiment. When you look at Paul Hanlon and Lewis Stevenson, Mark, do you think it's maybe time that when Martin Boyle's contract is up, it's a case of saying, thank you very much for all the memories and everything that you've done for the club, but it's now time for us to look elsewhere?
Yeah, potentially. I think we just have to see how the season goes. Maybe, up until January. At that point, he'll have an opportunity to sign a pre-contract. We just need to see how he gets on. Obviously, yeah, he's certainly not as quick. I think he's potentially a bit of a victim of his own success just because of how good he was before he left for Saudi. He was probably one of the best players in the league at that point. And I think we expect that of him now, and we're not going to get that because he's 31 years old, and as a winger, that can easily be sort of the equivalent to a 35, 36-year-old striker.
I think it helps though, Mark, if you've got something else in your arsenal, whether it be a good delivery or whatever. For me, Boyle's exclusively relied on pace, and then he's used his pace to get into areas where he can be effective. If he's not got that pace anymore, I don't think he can get into those areas to be as effective as he was before.
Yeah, I don't think he's certainly not as fast as what he was, but I certainly don't think he's a slouch at the moment. And I think, his performances haven't been what we would expect of him, but I still think he's got something to offer. Whether it's maybe a player that comes off the bench or in a bit of a lesser role, I don't know. We just have to see how the season goes. Again, I'm not really using Celtic as much of a sort of benchmark because it's so difficult for players like Boyle and for anyone. But we'll see how he gets on against the clubs that you would expect: the Hearts, Aberdeen's, Dundee United, all the other teams in the league. And if he can't, deliver against them, then yeah, definitely we'll maybe it'll be time.
And it'll be a sad day because he's been a great servant to the club, but every dog has his day, and you kind of want to see these kind of players move on before they're rendered useless. As harsh as that sounds, you want to remember them.
I will say one
thing. You remember them for the good times.
There's not been many better buzzes around Easter Road than that day when he came back against Hearts.
You couldn't have wrote that. That was straight out of Hollywood that day.
Not even the goal though, but the entire, because I'm sure that was like a 12:30 kickoff or something. So obviously, majority of us were up early, and it was like 8:30, 9 o'clock. The messages started coming through. Fucking Boyle's in the squad.
Yeah, because was it the Friday night or something, or the Saturday night?
No, we played them on the Sunday, I think.
So it would be because
I remember being
before,
in
right?
Albion Bar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember being in Albion Bar and Ben Kensel coming over to the table and being like, by the way, Martin Boyle's in the squad today, but please didn't tell anyone. And then a minute later, he was at the next table along for a squad. Martin Boyle's in the squad, but didn't tell anyone.
Not like Ben to be opening his mouth, is it?
Oh,
But,
I tell you what, Ken, what we've had our moments talking about Ben Kensel on this podcast, but he's good comedy value. He's good comedy value.
Only when the comedy's funny.
Next up, friend of the show, Liam Riley, is asking, why does Scottish football media always come across anti-Hibs? Are people overreacting already this season? I feel like the BBC especially have been anti-Hibs since we got rid of Jack Ross, their wee poster boy.
Aye, Mikey Stewart's had an absolute fucking hard on for anything that we do.
He's a dickhead.
I don't know if anybody, if either of you have seen it, but Chris Boyd done a bit before the game, where he actually nailed it on the head a bit. And I didn't very often agree with what Chris Boyd says, but when he spoke about like he just basically came out and asked like, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
He was like, we've got all of this, the big screens, the lovely standing section, the lovely hospitality and all that. That's great. But if it's no right out on the park, the rest of it doesn't matter a joke.
Yeah.
And he was spot on. It was like maybe a 3-4 minute bit, and Stubbs spoke about that as well. Ely Barber asked him like, what would you say the difference is between when you took over compared to Gray taking over? And he said when he took over, he had a blank sheet of paper, which he did. I think if you remember when he got the job, we only had about 6.
Yeah, 7 players under contract or something. Yeah.
Whereas Gray's piece of paper is absolutely rammed full.
Yep.
So it was a good bit to listen to by the media for what it was. The BBC, especially guys like fucking Alan Preston and Willie
He's
Miller,
a jambo
Richard
anyway.
Gordon. They're all dweebs.
Yeah, they are a bit jabroni. Not a big fan of them. So fuck them. Fuck you, Richard Gordon and Alan Preston and that. If you're listening, probably not. But we've got the last couple of questions, and Harvey Scott's asking, just me that honestly thinks Joe Neal wouldn't start for any other team in this league. Might be reactionary, but honestly, he was pathetic and is untouchable because he's been made captain of this embarrassing club. I'm glad to see that that's not reactionary, Harvey. In terms of not starting for any other team in the league, I mean, he probably gets a start for Dundee United, St Johnstone.
If you look at the teams we're competing against for 3rd and 4th, so effectively Hearts and Aberdeen,
no,
Joe Neal wouldn't make their bench.
But anyone else in the division,
possibly,
maybe he'd get in.
But he doesn't. He's one of these players that just doesn't really offer that much. He's not really. He doesn't get any goals. He doesn't get any assists. His passing is neat and tidy in midfield. He's not particularly. He doesn't have any bite about him. He's not like a type that will run about and be dogged or anything like that. So it's like, what else do you want your centre mid to do? Like I keep saying, he's a wee bit. He's kind of neat and tidy in that, but apart from that, he offers absolutely fuck all.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I don't know if he's a brilliant talker or whatever, but for some reason, he's been untouchable under about 4 different regimes. So fuck knows, what he's up to behind the scenes, but he's been absolutely untouchable for years now.
Correct. And finally, we've got Haley, and she's asking, thoughts on Block 7 today? Feel the atmosphere was much better, although I am sitting right next to them, so biased. From where I'm sitting, it sounded a lot better, but I think that's just because Block 7 are to my left, whereas all the noise before was always going on to my right. So, you can hear the Celtic fans on that side here and the Hibs fans on that side here. So, in that respect, yeah, it worked a bit better. It was nice to see them behind the goal. I don't know what you guys thought.
Yeah, it was all right. I'm right at the top I'm closer to the Celtic fans because I'm right at the top of the east, or closer to the away end. So I was quite far away, but I like the look of the safe standing, and I think it'll be brilliant on Derby Day and that when there's a big number in there behind the goals. personally, I'm no one for bouncing about for 90 minutes, but at the same time, they do bring a bit of atmosphere in the smaller games that maybe was missing before. But I think against your Hearts, your Rangers, and all that, I think
Gonna be
it'll be
bouncing.
much better because you've got them who are bouncing about all the time, but then you've got like the East Stand who has a sing song in that, but they're just Ken. It's more far apart.
Yeah.
I heard there was complaints that the flags that they had were too high, and as a famous five upper myself, I can confirm that if that does indeed impact my match day viewing, then I will be sorely upset.
You're going to do fuck all about it.
I'll probably do nothing about it.
I mean, it looked great. It sounded great.
Boys and just go, they've got the fucking flags up again, man.
From my perspective, it looked great. It sounded great, and I can only imagine that when we score important goals down that end, either under the lights or in the sunshine on the telly, it's how good that's going to look. It's going to be absolute limbs, and we know that on this podcast we are limbs connoisseurs.
If they can get the sort of middle ground between maybe singing a few of the old classics to get everybody involved when it's going.
But see, that's where I think the East comes in. I think the old classic, the East gets
that's their job,
and then everyone gets. Whereas I think Block 7 are more of a constant. They do their own thing throughout the game, and it's a constant bit of buzz. Whereas I think it's the East now, and because Block 7 are away, it's almost like we've created two singing sections. Like against Hearts, I can guarantee the East will be buzzing and they'll still be singing about that, and they'll still be going. So I think it'll be good to mix it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And that's
interested in singing about Hibs and Marseille for 90 minutes.
It's not for me. It's not for me. Like
it's not for everyone. But I tell you what, they're bringing atmosphere that's not been there for years and years and years and years. And whether you agree with them or not, that's up to your own choices. But what can't be disputed?
Championed blocks.
Well, what can't be disputed is the fact that they are bringing noise, they're bringing atmosphere, and Easter Road sounds better with them there. And that's...
We championed Block 7. We've obviously had Block 7 on the pod. We've supported them in their aims to get a section. Obviously, we can't say that the Famous Five was converted solely for them, but they've got a full middle section behind the goals now, and it's now over to them to see what they can do. And hopefully, going forward, it will just continue to grow. It'll spread back up the rest of the stand, and it'll go along the other standing section parts. Because it could end up being, as long as it doesn't turn out like the shite Gorgie Ultras one.
Well, I think they're already better than them, to be honest. Yeah. There's about 16 of them.
The Gorgie Ultras are limited to that tiny little section. There's only a few rows in their bit, whereas we've got the whole bottom stand, and it just looks a bit better already. For them, it just looks like nothing for them. It just looks like there's a tiny wee section.
Yeah, which is a bit embarrassing.
Because they're in the family/hospitality stand.
I know.
No, but so are Block 7 though.
No, family section better. Moved to the east.
No, the hospitality, literally, the people that go to Hospitality Tynecastle sit behind Gorgie Ultras.
You're having hospitality in the fucking stand behind the goal, that's a joke.
The stand lifts up. You can see outfit underneath the stand when they've got the hospitality things up.
That's terrible. Yep. I feel like it's a good place to wrap up. A wee bit of heart slander. We can all get behind that. But Marc, Craig, thank you very much for your time this evening. And again, to the listeners, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening along if you got this far. And if you don't follow us already, we are at the Hibs Ramble on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We're now on TikTok. So if you want to follow us on there, you can. And like always, if you want to get involved in the conversation, send us a tweet. That's the platform that we check the most. And basically, that's all I've really got to say. 96 episodes in, and I've still not fucking perfected the outro.
Towards number 100. Choo choo.
Yeah, we're getting there. We need to kind of figure out what we're doing. So, if anyone's got any good questions, any good suggestions for things that we could do for episode 100, then get in touch and we would love to hear them. But until then, we will speak to you after the Celtic game on Sunday. So take care. If you're heading through, safe travels. Cheery bye.
Let's get ready to rumble.